Welcome to the Music Wide Open podcast
The place for an honest and thought-provoking conversation
about music,
business,
life,
technology,
and the future,
for curious music enthusiasts.
and musicians seeking personal growth. I'm Ingolf Wunder.
And I am Paulina Wunder. Whether we like it or not, we are surrounded by sounds, frequencies, by music from day one. To be more precise, the initial sound perception begins much earlier. And that is by around 16 weeks of pregnancy. However, it is not until the last trimester of pregnancy that a tiny human being becomes most capable of hearing music and can react to the sounds and even memorize the melodies and recognize them after birth. Most parents naturally introduce their children to music at a very early stage of life. Some do this with random music toys, some by listening to various kinds of music, some by listening to classical music or even carefully selected repertory. There are also parents who introduce their children to real musical instruments as soon as possible. There are many right ways to introduce music to children, but as always, the devil is in the details. And these details ultimately determine whether these approaches are good or not. Ingolf, our childhoods were totally different. You're coming from a family of hobby musicians, and I'm coming from a family of professional musicians. You became a professional musician, and I didn't become even a hobby musician. We have two different points of view, and now that we have a child, we both also have a third point of view, a parental one. Today I would like to talk about the following: how to make an introduction to music in a healthy way, the right and the wrong ways, what to pay attention to, the benefits of music on child development, mistakes that overambitious parents do, and how not to kill a child's musical talent if they have it. Okay, what to do, how to start, and what should one pay attention to at the very beginning?
Well, first of all, my parents weren't even both hobby musicians, just one. But that's a side note. So, how to make an introduction? I think people tend to overthink things. In my opinion, making music a natural part of daily life is very important. There are two sides to that, because of course, for professional musicians, music is a part of the daily life, which doesn't always have to be a good thing, but we'll come to that later.
Exactly.
Then, the child has to listen to music, as simple as this, and it has to interact with music, because only the combination of listening and interaction makes itself really, places itself to the right parts of the brain. Music toys, like real music toys, are of course a very good early childhood development. Here I mean toys that actually sound like music should sound, not terrible synthesized ones. And as much as possible, live music, of course. Singing, playing an instrument oneself if one can. But important is that one really actively or watches when the kid is actively into it and is kind of open to take things. I think this is the most important thing. Well, when I said just listening to music, of course, it's important what they listen to. And here I would be, it's my personal opinion, all genres that are possible, or all kinds of shades that one can find with music, but the common denominator though has to be that it's humanly made. Yeah. Because there are even studies supporting this, that humanly played music goes much more direct into kids' brains than
That's true.
computerized ones.
That's why no toy will be a replacement for live music, because alone for the MIDI sound that the toys have, or bed speakers.
Exactly.
There is this kind of a, one can say, already a cliche. Everybody heard about that it's good to expose children to the music of Mozart in order to make
the Mozart effect.
The Mozart effect, exactly, to make the kids smarter. And I have to always laugh when I hear it, because partly it is true, but it is, I think, a big simplification. So let's talk a little bit about the benefits. We know for a fact that music enhances some aspects of cognitive development in children. And what it means.
Language skills, memory.
Yes, exactly. It means it helps build neural pathways that are necessary exactly for listening and for speaking. And therefore, it speeds up the whole process and improves language and communication skills. And if a child gets to that point when he or she starts learning and practicing music, it helps develop better memory and concentration skills. Also, playing instruments or dancing as well help children build fine motor skills and improve hand-eye coordination.
Yeah, and spatial awareness.
That's right. And these are just a few, because the obvious one is, for example, creativity and imagination development, then stress relief, emotional regulation, better academic performance, and so on and so on. And this is because learning music increases brain power and functionality, and as a consequence, it might improve IQ. So therefore, Mozart effect, which is not directly connected necessarily to Mozart himself.
Yeah.
It's all about these neural pathways. So the more, the better.
Brain plasticity.
Yes, listening to music and playing an instrument significantly enhance the connectivity between the brain's parts, so the hemispheres.
Well, of course, creativity and imagination and all the things you said. Of course, not only Mozart's music does that. The way probably why it became common wisdom that Mozart's music does it better is because there is some truth to that, that classical music in general, especially classical music from that time, has, like classic structures and like, I wouldn't say simplified, but these are still musical structures that kids understand much better than if you would give directly
more complex,
like impressionism or later, even later music to them. It would be too much for the child's brain at first. So that's why probably Mozart was like, because it's a marketing figure nowadays. If Mozart would have been that famous in his time, that would have been nice.
Maybe as well, because Mozart composed already as a child. Therefore, these structures that he wrote back then were simpler and.
But not so many people know actually why he started that early. It was because of his father, right? I mean,
that's true.
Again, we're coming to the point of how to bring kids to music.
Yes.
But important is also another aspect that active music making does this wonder in the brain. It means that the kid really has to be brought to not only, as I said, listen to human-made music, actually, to have more than just sound, but to connect stuff with the music. May it be a move, may it be a thought or something that happened in the household while it listened to that music, or pictures, which shouldn't be moving pictures at the very beginning, as we know.
That's true.
But if you come to the stage that the kid does music actively with his fingers or mouth or whatever, then the wonders begin. So you actually have to, which again is in a way hard work. Of course, a kid wants to play, so it has to be always fun. Never, you can kill it with hard work, but it's repetition. So kids actually have to do it. So it doesn't mean that you listen to Mozart once and you are smarter. And so on.
Absolutely, obviously, and everything depends on the parents. I would say there are several types of parents, and maybe we can focus on those. Let's say basic types for a while. There are parents who don't play a musical instrument or don't know much about music. Very easygoing, they are not forceful, everything is innocent, they just want to introduce music to children. There are also parents who have some clue, or maybe they just think they have, depends on the person. Maybe they did play an instrument as a child, and who would love their child to learn how to play and be better than they ever were. So one can sense here the overambition. And there are parents who are professional musicians. There are of course more types, but let's narrow it down to those three. Let's maybe start from the first group, so those ones that would like to, in an innocent way, introduce music to their child.
Well, as you said, there are of course many subgroups in these three groups. It always depends on what's the level of music education of the parents and what's the intention of them. So, in my opinion, it's like with everything. Kids learn with repetition, of course, and copying at first.
Yes.
So they will do whatever the parents do themselves. And
that's true.
And usually if there's too much pressure involved, it will not work. And if there's too little pressure involved, it will also not work. I can go only from my own experience, obviously, as a kid. Everybody does. And I think it's this golden balance of kindness, but of enough pressure that you actually repeat things often enough without giving up, and always have this kind of positive attitude to it, and not overwhelming the child. In any way, by the way, it can also mean that if parents have no clue about music and just want them really to play music, doesn't matter how, it can be also overwhelming.
Of course.
So I think it's really tricky, but it's like this example of smoking parents. I mean, if you smoke yourself and tell your kid not to smoke while smoking yourself, you will probably not succeed. And the same thing is with music. If you don't really love music or live music yourself, you will not be credible to actually
that is correct.
Get the
that
kid there where you want it.
That is correct. You might be a bit more credible when you have a bit of clue, but sometimes it comes with the pressure. And here I see a huge problem with parents who try to, for example, compensate their unfulfilled ambitions through their children. And
that's correct, but on the other hand, it's very helpful if there is a healthy unfulfilled path of the parent, because then in a healthy way they want the kids to do this what they didn't do themselves, as you said.
That's
and
true.
In a healthy way, it's very good.
That's
very
true.
helpful. That was
possible.
my case with my father, by the way.
That is true. But what I want to mention is an issue that unfortunately it's a fact, an existing fact, and unfortunately no one really talks about it. And this is the less positive scenario, when the parents who have these unfulfilled ambitions, for example, force the child to play an instrument. And to be clear, by forcing, I don't mean positive encouragement and healthy motivation. Hey, do it, you can, a little bit more. I mean force. And there are a lot of musicians who had a very strict childhood, and we know that.
Yeah.
And pianists who were tied by the parents to the piano bench.
Yeah, I just want to say that.
When they were children, so that they can practice more. or musicians who, as a child, had to get up much earlier than their peers in order to practice, then go to school, then come back and practice again, and basically having no time for being a child.
Yeah.
These are, of course, extreme examples, but they are real. And some become musicians with a scar or even trauma. Some decided to run away from music, but they also have a scar.
I just wanted to clarify the the reason I laughed when you talked about tying kids to the piano chair. It's like not because I find it funny, because it's not funny at all. Just because it's so overdone and so ridiculous for me, because
Completely.
I know that such a person will never really like music afterwards.
Will never love it.
Will never, even if he or she is great at it, because it's like this. Like, you know, they say, I forgot the number, but Russian tennis players or something hit so many million balls more when they turn 18 than other tennis players. That's why they are great. So of course such kids hit more piano keys than kids that were not tied to the piano chair, but they will never love it. And with this,
they might even say they love it, but it will not come.
It will never be a deep love, that love that you need in order to really make nice music, like
individual,
convincing music, that you know, oh, that person lives the music that he just played.
It will
never happen.
This will always stay in their subconscious, whether they want or not.
Exactly.
And, I think what is very important to mention here is this, I would say even golden, crucial period for children, the 7 years. And children, until they are 7 years old, they operate in theta waves, which are slow brain waves, the same as during hypnosis, by the way. And then later it shifts to alpha and beta, which are faster frequencies. Anyway, so theta waves are responsible for a super learning state. That's why small kids can learn an amazing amount of skills, or multiple languages, all sorts of behaviors in a relatively short period of time. And the theta waves are also associated, of course, with creativity and imagination. So the whole programming happens within this period, 7 years. This is the foundation of our habits, behaviors, senses. So it is super important.
The program.
So yes, and so it is super important what the parents do and how they do it.
Absolutely, it's really all about reacting to the child, or paying attention to the child, how it reacts to music, and then take it from there and you know, foster an environment where it can do this what it wants to do, you know,
in terms of reaction.
Yes, in terms of reaction to music, because that's the most important thing. It's science, you know. If they, I don't know, cry when they hear some music, or if they make some hand movement or eye movement to music or something like this, then it's the time to actually go there and do more of that, in order to, you know, to get these connections done, or these synaptic connections between emotions and musical structures. And this is so important.
And not in a forceful way.
Never. No, it doesn't work. I mean, it maybe works, but it will leave a scar, as you said, and it will technically work, but it will never emotionally work.
There's another group of parents that I've mentioned. You are one of those, the parents who are professional musicians. And I have as well a father who is a professional musician. So I did have that experience as a child. And I'm not the only one, obviously. Naturally, musicians want their children to be exposed to music, or shall we say, actively exposed to music. In other words, they want their child to learn a musical instrument. And there is nothing wrong with it. It's very good, in fact, unless unless the expectations of the parents or one of the parents start to cause tension. Parents who are musicians often, not always, but very often, I would say, apply very high standards to their children.
Yeah, because they want them to succeed.
Exactly. Even if the child doesn't want. But it is dangerous because such kids feel that they are not supposed to be, I know it will sound funny, not supposed to be beginners, even if they are. They feel the impatience of their parent, the nervousness, and every mistake such a child makes while learning an instrument or practicing leads to counterproductive stress. Especially if everything what a child does wrong is being pointed out in a way that the child feels this negative energy. And one cannot forget that young children don't analyze the cause and effect because this comes much later. They won't think, oh, mommy or daddy got angry because he wants me to be really good. He wants...
And he's a professional
musician. Exactly.
He
wants the best for me. He knows how it is. And maybe he applied too high standards for my age and level. I understand him. It's sort of obvious that a child doesn't understand that. And the fact that I even mention it sounds a bit silly. But it's not silly because many parents who are musicians have difficulties with a healthy and rational approach. And if you as a parent don't have this under control, whatever you try to do will bring opposite results.
Yeah, so either the kid will give it up or it will be unhappy.
Yes, or even in the most extreme situations will hate music.
Yeah. Depends on the character.
Yes, of course. And on the parents.
Exactly. No, this is very important. Well, here I have to bring up an example that you know very well because I bring that often. It's Erich Kleiber and Carlos Kleiber. Obviously, Erich Kleiber had probably overall still a bigger...
The conductors, let's put it this way for those who don't know.
Exactly. Erich Kleiber had overall probably still a much bigger career than Carlos had. But Carlos was definitely more talented overall, and his performances are just electrifying, all of them. Erich Kleiber's were very good, but anyway, the point is that he did exactly the opposite.
Maybe let's first tell what was the situation between the father and the son.
Yeah, actually, Erich Kleiber was very much against his son being a musician in the first place. He didn't have any musical training because Erich Kleiber, he knew how difficult a professional musician's life is, as I do too. So he didn't want his son to do it unless he's seriously good at it. I'm here already interpreting a little bit after reading the biography because I don't know exactly his thoughts, but I think so. Because the father actually said to his son, go study chemistry in Zurich, which he did. So Carlos was not really introduced at all as a child to music professionally, although his father was one of the best conductors living.
And his son in the end as well.
Yeah, well, even better than him. But the fact that he then became a musician was out of pure own will and determination, because way past his 20s, he then couldn't not study music out of his own will. And then the father made sure he got training, but of course way too late, past 20s, right, you would say. And since he was so famous, Erich, he wanted his son to get the education in South America, so just that the European music scene and the American music scene doesn't know that his son is actually getting music tuition. So, but it's a very interesting story, so I recommend everybody that's interested in such stuff to read the biography of Carlos Kleiber. But long story short, Carlos Kleiber, out of his own will, made a basic music education past his 20s and made it onto the big stages as a conductor, and then became arguably the best conductor ever living. And that's the kind of healthy way, although extreme, because you actually harm your child by not giving him a chance to find out early what he's good at and what he's not. So I would not probably do that, but it worked out in a way, because probably that fire was ignited so much by the prohibition of doing this, what you actually would like to do deep inside.
Maybe the father did some kind of introduction, but didn't suspect the size of the talent the son had.
Yes, or maybe he knew and just wanted to protect him, because we also don't know the first 7 years you mentioned. Maybe he was exposed so much to great music in his theta waves
Exactly.
that he had something deep inside so much in the program that then with 20 was activated much quicker than others would. So we don't know these things, but of course it's a fascinating story. And in a way also my role model for my own child. Not that I would prohibit it, but I would not want my son to be a professional musician unless he's really good at it. But of course...
But what we both want, that our child loves music and understands music.
Yes, because it's vital to be a healthy, happy human being, in my opinion.
Yes. And to get all the benefits that music and music making, even for a short while, brings.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. I mean, you mentioned many things before, like cognitive skills, memory, attention, problem solving, patterns in music, and the ability to repeat stuff the way that you learn it on a very high level is something that you can put into any job, and that's why the 21st century skills, right, are very much promoted through music.
STEAM instead of STEM.
It should be, yes. Arts should be included. Science,
technology, engineering, arts, and maths.
Exactly. And right now STEM is without the arts, which of course is a very bad thing.
It might stay this way, having in mind all the cuts.
Yes, that's why we're doing what we're doing with our mission, to change that.
Yeah.
And while it's very important to praise the child and make it feel very good in what it's doing, it's very bad to overly praise the child, because then again the balance is missing, and it will just do some bad stuff and we'll think it's great.
Not only this, but remember we know examples of musicians who admit that they've been always praised for what they can do on their instrument, and then they grew up, had a cold shower, and realized that they were overpraised, that they actually cannot do much.
Exactly, because here one has to keep one aspect in mind, that it of course depends on the path of the musician, but it's very common that let's say you were overly praised by parents who have no clue.
Yes.
But you do have some talents, a mediocre talent, for example, or good enough to go through the system of music schooling, where you basically, and especially in America or in countries where you actually pay for tuition, then you will never get an honest opinion, because you're a customer of that person that educates you. And of course in these countries,
so you're as good as the fee you're paying.
Exactly, but also in these countries where you get education basically for free or for very little, you have the problem of unfortunately teachers to a large extent who are not really competent anymore to that degree to really say if somebody is like highly talented or really good or not. And then you are basically in a system, you're kind of swimming in there, you think you're great, you're not, but you're passing some exams because you're judged by people who don't really know themselves. And then the cold shower.
Or they don't care.
And then the cold shower is coming, because at some point...
Either this or you overestimate your skills.
So this is very important. So I think it's for those parents who cannot judge themselves objectively. I mean, we are never really objective as humans, but as objective as possible. It's always advisable to find a a teacher or professional of your trust that hopefully knows. And
I think what's even more important is to be aware about the implications of both the negative energy and, shall we say, underpraising a child and overpraising.
Yeah, and as stated before, and I think one cannot repeat it enough, it's about the balance and the kind of the to be aware of, or to start becoming aware of what feels natural in connection to your kid. Like, I cannot put it better, because like nothing that it has to evolve naturally. Like everything that is forced in this or the other way,
it collapses at
will
some
collapse.
Point. Yes,
and it's really very important, especially for parents who do not want to kill a child's musical talent, because
or any talent, in fact.
Which parent actually wants to do that? So nobody, right? We want to encourage or foster the talent. So important is always to make practice a form of exploration and fun. But at the same time, as it's fun, it has to be communicated that it's necessary to repeat. I always got this rule, actually from my father, and it's stuck to me until my professional life. You always have to repeat something perfectly 5 times in order to have it. Yes. If it's just 1 or 2 times and then the 3rd time it doesn't work, it will not be there. And such small things, like tons of these things, but it teaches kids in all sorts of situations.
It only teaches when it's communicated the right way, with pleasant energy,
exactly,
with a positive attitude, and that it motivates a child, and not with this feeling of you don't fulfill my expectations. No.
Exactly.
So many parents have this problem.
Exactly. That's what I mean by fun. I mean, it cannot be forced in any way, although there has to be some natural pressure, of course, because otherwise
nobody would do anything.
Yeah, exactly.
And there are such kids as well.
Yeah, and of course one has to avoid comparing children to others. Yes. In a way, because also that's, I say in a way, because it's inevitable. Yes. At some point we all compare. This is how it works, in a way. but one has to, I think, go to or let's say, make in a fun way, make the child understand what music should be about, like what the essence is, sort of. And this is in my book Expression, in my book the mapping, to use tech language, the mapping of emotional expressions to musical phrases, structures, melodies, harmonies, etc. And if that's done in a fun way, then you can say, okay, you might be having quicker or slower fingers than this guy, but you have your personal expression.
Or better or worse voice. If
exactly, but you actually do it in a natural way. You do it like you are, and therefore you should do it. This is a very nice way of actually making things fun and
yes,
and avoiding this. Oh yeah, you have to be better than this guy. There.
Apply some freedom in that, and encourage
exactly.
to be individual as well.
Exactly.
Children don't have their conscious awareness before age 7, and their critical thinking and logical reasoning only start to develop around age 8. Their subconscious mind absorbs everything that we, adults, present to them with our conscious mind. We shape children's habits, characters, stamina, and perseverance. Our choices and decisions also shape children's tastes and sensitivity. So if you have children, or you plan to have them, and you would like to give them an unfair advantage, introduce them to music and pay attention to how you do it. It might help them in life in many ways. As Plato said, I would teach children music, physics, and philosophy, but most importantly, music, for the patterns in music and all the arts are the keys to learning.